For the most part everything was routine. It was a varied group of riders. Men, women, some kids, some adults, mostly beginners. A few riders had some limited experience riding horses. Everyone was very nice, and followed instructions, and listened carefully as Paddy cheerfully explained the house rules, with one exception. As Paddy explained the rules, he mocked Paddy. Perhaps he thought he was being funny. Paddy had concluded that he was just a miserable son of a gun. Without missing a word of her presentation, Paddy rode her horse over so that she was immediately beside the man. Paddy thought that had done the trick. Until about 5 minutes later. They were on the first section of the beginner's trail, and Paddy turned back to check on the riders in the string. And there he was, feet out of stirrups, hammering it up at the back of the line. Paddy felt sorry for Coco, the name of the horse that had been assigned to that customer. Paddy stopped the ride, rearranging the riders so that the miserable man was immediately behind her. She looked at her watch, and thought about how slowly that hour ride was going. Confidentially, Paddy told the man that he needed to keep his feet in the stirrups at all times. Paddy tried to blame the insurance company for that rule that had worked well on other occasions. This customer didn't take feedback or direction very well.
I don't guess I need some young, amateur little girl passing me around and telling me what to do. I'm a grown man, and I paid good money for this ride. These miserable old beasts are trained to quietly plod along, dumbly plain follow the leader all day. If you want to keep your job, I guess you'll have to learn to treat your customers better, and let them have a little fun.
Every word the man said stung. Paddy could feel tears of anger building behind her eyes. She clenched her jaw, determined not to let tears be her response to this idiot's diatribe.
For your information, I am a trained professional. I have been riding horses for over 10 years. I have ridden in horse shows all around the North Country. What's more, I am personally responsible for the safety of all of our guests. Now, if you please, we have other riders among us here today who paid good money and would like to get back on the trail.
By the time Paddy finished her speech, she was feeling quite pleased with herself. She hadn't let the tears of anger loose. She had calmly and professionally addressed the situation, and what's more, when she came to the end, the rest of the riders clapped. Mr. Grouchy Pants hung his head. Paddy turned and started her horse back down the trail. The rest of the horses followed. The next half hour or so was pretty uneventful. They were 3/4 of the way around the loop. Almost home, she thought. Then she turned back, yet again to check on the riders. Paddy couldn't believe it, even though she had seen it with her own eyes. The man made an ugly face, stuck his tongue out, and removed his feet from the stirrups. Then he slouched his bulk from one side to the other. Right then and there, Paddy resolved that when they got back to the barn she was going to give him his money back, all $3, and tell him never to show his ugly face around there again, and if he didn't like the way he was treated, he should go in and ask for the owner. Just as Paddy was congratulating herself on the righteousness of her thoughts, Mr. Bully's horse was thrown off the straight and narrow path by the erratic behavior of his rider.
This caused poor Coco to step on a ground nest of bees.
Once the bees had begun to exit the hole, mass continuous swarms of bees commenced stinging anything that moved. That meant every horse, and every rider. In a matter of seconds, horses were hopping all around trying to get away from the bees, bucking and hopping, twisting, then stopping, then starting again. Paddy later described it as looking like Mexican jumping beans. One by one, all but the last horse in the string of riders got thrown off. Paddy jumped in and took over the situation. Paddy instructed the riders to run, or walk as fast as possible down the trail a safe distance, until no bees were present. Then Paddy gathered horses. One by one, Paddy reunited each rider with their horse and helped them get mounted back up. Each time Paddy went back, she got stung again, many times over. As it happened, the last horse Paddy caught was the chauvinist's horse. Of course, he had been thrown to the ground. For some reason, he hadn't gotten back up. He kind of sat there, moaning and groaning. Paddy ignored him. She just thought he was being selfish and miserable, but then she discovered that, in addition to being selfish and miserable, he'd broken his leg. Even so, he was able to make it to his feet. One of the other guests helped Paddy get the large man back on his horse. Fortunately, there wasn't too far to go before they made it back to the barn. As they were approaching the barn, Paddy waved her arms furiously. Roger McLean saw Patty, and came running. Patty quickly told Roger what had happened and asked if he could give their guest a ride to the hospital. Then Patty turned to the guest and said,
"Mister, the next time some young, amateur little girl bosses you around, may I suggest you do what she tells you, sir? Broken leg. Serves you right."
Patty turned away, leaving her former customer in Roger's hands. The other guests were very gracious and sympathetic. Patty got many compliments for standing up to the miserable son of a gun. They told Patty they appreciated how well she took care of them, remaining calm and getting them safely back to the barn. And Patty had never been tipped more handsomely. And then, Patty began to swell up. If she hadn't had the allergy to bees previously, she definitely developed one that day. One of the other cowboys called the office and got Doc to come over. Doc quickly whisked Patty off to the doctor, where they were informed they had made it just in time. From then on, Patty had to carry an emergency bee sting kit with her everywhere she went. Patty couldn't help but think of the day she socked it to a bully twice her size whenever she saw that bee kit. On the way home from the doctor's office, Patty confessed to Doc and told him exactly what had happened on the trail, and how she couldn't help but say what she did. Doc told Patty,
"I'm proud of you. Maybe I have never been more proud of you than I am right now. It does serve him right. If he comes back to complain, I can assure you I won't be as professional as you were."
Then Patty said,
"Do you think I should have cussed? I didn't cuss. Should I have done it?"
Both of them laughed. It was a silly thing to say. Maybe it was the bee poison, maybe it was the medicine. What made Doc laugh was the sight of his daughter saying something so ridiculous with her face and body all swollen and puffed up. They laughed so hard it was almost hard for Doc to keep the car on the road. This has been an excerpt from my new book, In the Shadow of a Giant.